Childhood by David Dunwoody. Narrated by Brad Ziprich. The realization that a clown isn't really smiling is the death of childhood. When I was 9, I sat in the front row of a traveling show with my dad. He bought me a bag of peanuts. The paper sack smelled musty, and the peanuts had too much salt, but I wanted to experience the circus as he had, just as much as he had wanted it for me. So I sat there with him on a hard bench with my shoes tracing arcs in the sawdust, and we watched the clowns. One danced over me, waving a pair of tiny flags bearing the circus's emblem. He handed one to me and skipped away. The moment was brief, only a second or two, and had the light not fallen across his face in just the right way, the moment would have been perfect. It would have been magic. But I saw the crease of his scowl beneath the grease-painted smile. I watched him caper around the tent with a sick feeling in my stomach. I watched the other kids wave and cheer at him. They wanted him to dance over to them, to choose them as they had me. No, you don't, I thought. No, you don't. I probably forgot the encounter inside of a week, and would not recall it again until my early teens. I was 9, and there were many years left before I'd be a man, but childhood was over. There was an abandoned house in a grove of trees on Rousseau Street. It was one of those forgotten tracks that somehow never changed, no matter how much the neighborhood around it did. It was as if no one wanted to touch it. My dad didn't know who lived there, or who owned it currently. Of course, we 13-year-olds all thought it was a murder house. We came up with a story. It was me and Jimmy Fogelberg mostly, and I supplied many of the specifics over a course of 3 weekend sleepovers. The story never aimed to explain why the property was abandoned to begin with. In our premise, it simply always had been. But it explained why no one dared set foot there, not even to tear it down. The story went that there had been a traveling circus, and in that circus a clown who never smiled, and secretly hated children. One night, when the circus was in our town, he kidnapped a little boy and had taken him to the house on Rousseau. There, he'd strangled the child. It then went that the cops showed up and blew the clown to pieces, and his ghost remained there, forever standing in the shadows just beyond the window and waiting for another unwary child. The ending was Jimmy's big contribution, and most of the guys liked the gore descriptions of the clown's demise. I thought it was a little over the top. Just never sat right with me. It was as if, somehow, the rest was real, entirely credible, because I knew that clown. Sometimes, in my dreams, I knew that little boy too. When I was 17, Dad got a new job. I was uprooted from my hometown and moved across the country. It was jarring to be uprooted like that, on the cusp of finding my identity and suddenly in a new community where my memories and stories and all my life seemed irrelevant. I was angry for a while, but I made a few friends, and then, biking through the neighborhood the summer after junior year, I saw the house. It was on Leonard Avenue, in the back of a large lot and surrounded by enormous unkept trees. I dropped my bike in the grass and walked through the low-hanging branches. The windows and doors of the house were boarded over, save for one on the second floor, a black void through which the hot wind rustled faintly. Maybe it sounds terrible, but I thought of the clown, and suddenly I was home again. I asked my friends about the house. They didn't know any of its history, so I told them what I had heard about a traveling show and a hateful, scowling clown and a little boy that he spirited away to the house and strangled. In my ending, the clown sat in an old rocking chair, cradling the dead child in his lap, and tied a plastic bag over his own head. They were found the next morning. The guys scoffed and said they thought that was stupid, but somehow word got around. The house, formerly unnoticed, became a place of local legend, where dares were fulfilled and innocence lost, a place of loud, nervous laughter and silent, awkward fumbling. No one ever spent the entire night there, though. I'm 30 years old. The other night, I had a dream. I dreamed I was asleep in my bed and awoke to see a clown sitting at the foot of it. It was pitch dark in the dream, but I could see him anyway. He wore a baggy yellow jumper with red dots and a red fringe. He moved supplely back and forth. He was in a rocking chair. and there was something small and still in his lap. His face was painted white, with his mouth blue, not a smile, but a disapproving frown. And his eyes were empty black furrows, as if someone had plunged hooks into the sockets and stretched them downward. He rocked silently for a long time, then he stopped. I awoke with a terrible scream, and for the first time in 7 months I was grateful that my wife no longer lived there. I had the same dream the following night. This time, though, he rocked faster, more insistently, staring at me with his eyeless eyes until he came to a stop. Again I awoke screaming. I wasn't able to get back to sleep, although I lay there with my eyes closed until morning, head under the covers for good measure. Last night, the third night, was the worst of all. He was rocking in that chair like a mad fiend. The thing in his lap jostled, and I saw a tiny arm flop into view. And, just before the chair stopped, the clown grinned hideously through his painted frown. It had been a long time since I thought of the house on Leonard, or the house on Russo, or the circus. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about them now. The sun went down an hour ago. I'm going to drive over there, over to Leonard. I can't stand to dream of him again. I can't stand the dread of what he will do if I don't answer his call. It hasn't just been the last 3 months. I never shook him. Not really. Not entirely. In a way, he's been my only constant companion. It was rude of me to forget. Where are we going? My son asked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Shh. I pat his arm as I buckle him in. We're going to see someone special from when I was a kid. Isn't magic? I stuffed my duffel bag down between the seats. Rope rasp over rope, and plastic crinkles. No, I tell him, it's truth.